It doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish. My high school track coach pounded this phrase into my head every chance he got. He also asked me, "Who's your support system? Because you better find one." Honestly, I never believed him about the support system or about how I started or how I finished. I taught myself to only trust in me, and I adopted a mindset of complete self-reliance. To me, it was all about how I started. How I start dictates how I finish. You start poorly, you're going to finish poorly. I carried this mentality with me from high school all the way up until August of last year. Ultimately, though, this mentality failed me. It kept me chained to my failures, my mistakes, my shortcomings, and left me with a complete lack of confidence in myself and in my life. A few years ago, I started asking a lot of questions about my life. The questions that were left unanswered were about my faith and about my purpose. However, I never gave these questions the time they actually and truly deserved. I thought I had these two things figured out. After all, I was raised Catholic, went to church every Sunday, received all the sacraments I could before my 18th birthday, and at one point, I even gave priesthood a serious and heartfelt consideration. It wasn't until 2018 to 2019 when I was forced to find answers to all these questions. These 2 years were filled with things that I would never wish on anyone. However, God used them for good. It was His way of telling me, it doesn't matter how you start, it matters how you finish. In August of last year, I reconnected with an old friend. She initially recommended that I give OLM a try, so I took her up on her offer and went to church. The first Sunday I went, I met Father Mark. I told him that this was my first time going to church in 10 years, and that if he didn't keep in touch with me, I wasn't coming back. The first thing that came out of his mouth wasn't hello, it wasn't how are you, what's your name, good morning, it was you should come to Alpha. I kid you not, a minute later, Mary, the girl who told me about Alpha in the first place, texted me, "Hey, you should sign up for Alpha." At that point I said, well, I guess I'm signing up for Alpha. My first Alpha experience was amazing. I realized that many of the other Alpha members had the same questions about their faith and their life as I did. And not only that, they had a very similar story as to mine. Alpha gave me a platform to ask all the questions that were left unanswered. It gave me an arena where I felt normal for having all these questions, all these doubts, and all these preconceived notions about my faith and about God Himself. Alpha allowed me to set down roots in my own personal faith. It gave me the opportunity to start over again with God. It was God's way of putting me back at the starting line and showing me that my past has never defined me, nor will it ever dictate my future. Alpha was the instrument God used to save my faith and change my life. During 2020 and through this pandemic, I honestly don't know where I would be emotionally and mentally if I had never had the experience I had at Alpha last year. I'm an airline pilot, and as we all know, my industry in particular is faced with a lot of turmoil and uncertainty. I am constantly faced with news of pilots getting furloughed or pilots whose companies have completely folded and they have no job to go back to. With this pandemic, we're all faced with some extreme prospects. For some, they are quite bleak. For others, though, they're faced to figure things out, all while having unanswered questions left before 2020 or even before the pandemic. For me, I am so unbelievably blessed to have had my questions answered throughout before this pandemic. Because now, my relationship with Christ has helped me through these times, and He's given me peace that I cannot get from myself or from the world. I now have the support system that I never knew I needed but always desired. Alpha was a perfect beginning for me. It was a beginning that I thought I lost. It was the beginning of a beautiful relationship with God that I never thought I could have or was not allowed to have. It was the beginning of a journey that led me to become friends with the priest. It led me to the girl I hope to marry one day. And yes, this is the same girl who brought me back to OLM and introduced me to Alpha in the first place. It led me to become a lector here at OLM, and it reignited an old calling in my heart from God about becoming a deacon here in the future. So I encourage you to sign up. Even if it's only on the virtual side, it's a great opportunity. Mary and I are leading a group, and we'd love to have you all. Honestly, I was uncertain when I first signed up. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I couldn't have been more thankful for giving it a shot because it was the best decision I ever made in my faith. Alpha was God telling me, it doesn't matter where you start, it matters where you finish.